I mean, the point is we just don't know.
We don't know.
Right.
And
It seems so risky.
Danger that's being on the edge of a cliff. The carnivore diet, is it safe? Let's listen into a discussion from the Joe Rogan Experience. I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and I'm going to talk about the carnivore diet again. Let's listen in.
Yeah, I'm baffled by how many people are clinging to it as a panacea. I'm baffled by whether or not it's a physiological effect or whether there's a placebo effect going on.
I have a theory.
Please.
Yeah. So my theory is that it mimics some of the benefits of fasting, but allows people to persist for longer because it's providing some nutrition. You know, if you look in the scientific literature, fasting is like the cure-all for everything.
I agree with you.
I mean, like you can look at any condition and fasting is the cure.
We're talking water fast.
Let me stop right there. So this is the Joe Rogan Experience. This is Chris Kresser, who does a lot of, I would say, assembly of research about low-carb and keto diets, a lot of biochemistry. And then Dr. Joel Kahn is also on the interview microphone, and he is notable for a plant-based approach and probably will be the naysayer about the carnivore diet. But I think the idea of fasting, getting the health benefits of fasting is spot on. In fact, the older researchers of the low-carb keto diet called it fed fasting, because fasting really just means fat burning, and you're eating food while you're fasting and getting the nutrients that you need from animal sourced nutrition products. So anyway, we have Joe Rogan, who's baffled. We have Chris Kresser, who is going to be the low-carb scientist, sort of sticking up for it, perhaps, and then Joel Kahn as the plant-based critic.
We're talking water fasting, so you can do it for 2, 3, 4 weeks.
The problem is try that for a year.
Right.
That will be the cure for life in that case.
The longest is...
They were just joking about the man who did fast for a year, just had water. And but if you fasted forever, you would die, basically. So I'm not a big fan of long-term, prolonged fasting. I think if you're not hungry, it's reasonable not to eat within boundaries, of course. So back to the video.
Example is a year of water fasting.
So
actually.
most people
That's
are
that
not.
guy that lost, it was
Yeah,
300
Yeah,
plus
he was
pounds.
extremely
Yeah.
obese.
Right.
You know,
He
was
had a
living,
lot of energy stores to
living
use
off
up.
of his
Right.
fat stores, right?
But the fascinating thing about that was that he actually, his skin shrank too,
Right.
which is really...
which doesn't usually happen with weight
Yeah.
loss. So this is just a theory.
Well, a little comment about that. You can see they're not weight loss doctors. Actually, the skin can shrink with weight loss if you do it in a slow manner. If you use weight loss surgery, for example, which is very fast weight loss, your skin may not be able to recoil, but actually you can have skin come back, especially if you're eating protein. But in this case, it was the man who fasted for a year and his skin didn't sag. That was Joe Rogan's comment, but I see that happen all the time. The skin can recoil.
This is just a theory. I have nothing to, I don't have any evidence, but when you eat, meat is absorbed very high up in the digestive tract. And so when you only eat meat, it's a low residue diet and there's nothing left over to irritate or inflame the gut. My theory is a lot of people who are benefiting from this have a really disrupted gut microbiome. Alessio Fasano has argued that leaky gut is kind of a precondition for autoimmunity. And the carnivore diet is essentially like a gut rest or a fast. And so I don't, doubt that people are benefiting from it. The question is, what is the long-term?
So I agree. So if you switched to a low-carb diet, the most common report that I hear is that you go to the bathroom less often. As Chris Kresser said, there's less residue, there's less waste. It doesn't mean you're constipated. It doesn't matter how often you go for a bowel movement, but there's less waste. And I think the idea that the gut microbiome is changed is real. I think it's improved, and having some people be especially sensitive to vegetables will be eliminated if you do a carnivore diet. Or in the method that I teach, you're actually not getting much vegetable matter, you're not getting much leafy greens, And that could be one of the reasons why the approach that I use heals the gut really well. It's not even, what I teach isn't as extreme as a carnivore diet, but it's close to that. You don't get a whole lot of vegetables, and that's a common mistake that people make if you learn internet keto. And you're eating unlimited vegetables. Vegetables do have carbs in them, and you want to make sure you keep the carbohydrate level low to be on a keto diet using your own body fat as the source of ketones. So let's keep going.
Implication.
But there is no, I mean, there's a few people that have been doing it. There's some anecdotal evidence. People have been doing it for a few decades.
Well, it's pretty cool. I'm actually going on my homeboy Sean Baker's podcast in a few weeks.
You guys are homeboys?
We started, Sean and I started as enemies. We love each other. Sean, I love you, brother. We're going to have an honest discussion as much as you can to say, why is Mikhaila Peterson feeling good? And you got to love that and honor that. If she had done water fasting, transitioning to an ultra clean diet, would she have done as well? Who knows? But to look at Sean Baker's labs and say pre-diabetic, low testosterone, high BUN, I'm concerned, although he just published his coronary artery calcium scan is 0, and I honor that. He's got little kids. I don't want the guy to drop dead, but it's way preliminary for the bandwagon that's growing.
The problem with the testosterone thing, though, is he said that he had been deadlifting the day before, and the day before he took his test. Could that have significantly decreased his testosterone?
Well, he said he repeated it a few times and it stayed low. But if your serum total,
it raised quite a bit.
It could have. It didn't
it raised by 100%.
No, it was like 237.
Well,
I can't remember.
Hang on. So Joel Kahn, if you don't know Sean Baker is a vocal advocate for the carnivore diet, has a book on it. And Joel was saying that they're best friends, and he wants Sean to be healthy, but he's concerned about the blood levels, and this is an important distinction. So when you go to the lab and someone checks your blood, the normal range is being compared to people who eat carbohydrates. That's just the people who've come through the lab, and the normal ranges are for those people who eat carbohydrates. The blood levels that he's talking about, the testosterone, the thyroid, the hemoglobin A1C, a measure of diabetes and prediabetes, I think these aren't going to be the same when we look at the normal range of people who don't eat carbohydrates. There's the theoretical and then just the practical idea that I've seen a lot of people have differences in those labs, but they feel fine. So are you going to describe and be concerned about someone's adverse health by just a blood level of these things? No, I don't think so. I think we've learned a lot more than to be worried about the blood level of just one thing in the context of a low-carb keto diet. I can't imagine that they're best of friends, but I'm sure they can debate each other just fine. And the commonality of a vegetarian or vegan diet and a carnivore diet is the absence of the sugar and ultra-processed foods. Neither group really wants you to have sugar and candy all day long. So there may be more in common with these extremes than there are actually differences. That's called a false choice. If you have to make a decision between one or the other, because they may not actually be so dissimilar.
Can't memorize his labs, but
it's though.
There's plenty of data. If your serum total testosterone is less than 250, it's an adverse mortality predictor. And he wants to be alive. He doesn't need to do it. Mikhaila Peterson and Jordan might need to do it until they find a better path. Mm-hmm. But Sean's adopted it. So there's
Well, I just time out on that. I think so that there's the insinuation, the implication that if you have a low testosterone level, you don't live as long among carbohydrate eaters. You got to always add that into, under those conditions studied as the final ending of the sentence.
The biggest puzzle is, quickly, one of the things that plant-based eaters and people that fill 3/4 of their plate with fruit and vegetables get way more than everybody else is lots of vitamin C. And vitamin C builds healthy walls and builds healthy immune systems. You love vitamin C. I love vitamin C. I love it from foods. I don't mind it as a supplement. I don't mind it intravenous. Vitamin C is Linus Pauling. There's so many benefits to the body. Where are these people when every chart says that meat has no vitamin C? Are they eating raw meat, which might have vitamin C? Are they eating...
Well, so I'm not a dietitian, but I have Google, and I do have other resources of people who've coached me and taught me through the years. Actually, liver has a lot of vitamin C, and the experience of so if you're eating liver, don't worry about that. The experience of cultures that didn't really ever have plant products or fruit, like the Inuit who lived in the Arctic Circle, they didn't have scurvy. So the clinical manifestation of vitamin C deficiency is scurvy. And so I'm skeptical of this vitamin C thing just because of that clinical experience of people, and also the idea that actually animal source products do have vitamin C. It might not be as much per gram, but it may be just all that you need. And I don't see a epidemic of bleeding and problem like scurvy among my patients, although most of them do have a little bit of vegetables. But I think that is a common urban legend that there are going to be some nutrient deficiencies, including vitamin C, on a carnivore diet. I don't think it's a big deal.
Eating organ meat, which might have some vitamin C?
Let me stop you there, because I'll tell you what the explanation's been to me. The explanation to me has been that there is a decrease in absorption of vitamin C when you're consuming vitamin C with all these other things, cruciferous vegetables, carbohydrates, all these different things. That there's some sort of there's an adverse effect. Is that a fact?
Well, if you take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, you'll absorb a lot of it. You take 10,000 milligrams, on percentage, you won't absorb as much, but you'll still get more than 1,000 milligrams. Right. But there's also this theory that since they're eating basically a no added glucose diet, that there's some kind of competition in us between glucose and C. So even if they get a touch of C, they're absorbing it hyper efficiently. Nobody knows. They haven't developed
they're getting
scurvy.
Their glucose from glucogenesis.
Well, let's stop there at the vitamin C. I think, and the nobody knows. People are not getting scurvy when they follow diets that don't have fruit and vegetables in them. I mean, if it was a big deal, we'd be seeing it. I mean, they saw it on ships apparently years ago, and it was citrus that was given to replace the vitamin C. It's a high source, but the idea that since we don't know it must be bad is a common sort of power position view, whereas, if you haven't proved that it's okay, then it's bad. Well, no, I think if we don't know if it's true or not, we don't know if it's true or not. We use the information that we have, best we have today.
Glucogenesis.
Internally, right, because they're adding, certainly it's a low-carb diet, no doubt about it. They're getting a little alpha-gal in there, maybe. That's about the only curb.
I think, the point is we just don't know.
We don't know.
Right. And
it seems so risky.
Risky? I don't know. Risk, danger, that's being on the edge of a cliff. I wouldn't call it risky, and I'm really precise about the level of language. Is it a possible long-term problem? Maybe. The idea that you may need less vitamin C if you're eating fewer carbs is a very intriguing area that would be an easy kind of study to do. You could do short-term study, and that's the theory, is that you need less vitamin C if you're not eating the carbohydrates. Not mentioned in here, though, is the fact that vegetables actually have an anti-nutrient, or have a way to block the absorption of other nutrients, which doesn't get much attention, but it's something that wouldn't be there if you did a carnivore diet. You wouldn't have the anti-nutrients that the vegetables might have.
I like vegetables.
I love vegetables.
I like to eat them. I mean, I eat vegetables with essentially every single meal.
Yeah, that's very smart.
too.
As I told you, it's an antidote, if nothing else. I mean, it's awesome.
But I do think
Well, so if you like to have vegetables, great. That doesn't mean a carnivore diet can't be okay, right? I mean, this is sort of mixing in a lot of different ideas. And then Dr. Kahn kind of says, well, everyone knows you need vegetables and they're great for you. Well, I'm not so sure about that either.
I think that it's entirely possible that maybe it's people that have this disrupted gut microbiome, but that some people might be alert. Like one of the things that Mikhaila Peterson brought up when she was on the podcast, that it might very well be that she's allergic to almost everything. She has some sort of an allergic reaction. I think you both think that could be because of a fucked up gut microbiome.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely. She just hasn't had it evaluated. She started to laugh when I talked to my naturopath. That's what she should have kept on doing, gotten her gut analyzed and gotten her gut healed. I mean, maybe that would have helped her.
Well, so Dr. Kahn's approach is quite common, where go ahead and eat the foods and we'll diagnose the problems that the foods are giving you. I have a different approach, and that is, if you know a food's giving you a problem, and you can eat something else and get the same nutrition, why not drop those foods? So just eat those foods, go to a naturopath, they'll figure out which ones you're allergic to. Well, if the person dropped all those possibly allergenic foods and was well, I'm not sure the naturopath is needed. There was even another diabetes video that I reviewed where the individual said, you have to be able to eat carbs and have a normal blood sugar before the diabetes is reversed, which if the food is causing the elevation in blood sugar and the diabetes, I don't think that's a necessary thing to eat the carbs and then be treated when you eat carbs so that the diabetes is managed, not reversed. So again, it's kind of a different paradigm view where instead of just dropping all of those foods, well, eat them and let's find out and diagnose and take tests and give you pills maybe. I fell out of that kind of medication-based medicine a long time ago.
The problem with those naturopaths, it's like good psychics.
Can I
try to find one?
And the other thing is, my field, atherosclerosis, takes years to develop. But unless he's tracking carotid and coronary and doing it year after year after year, it's an experiment you might not want to run.
But
if you
Sean
can find,
did run those tests, and his results were baseline.
Some nutrient deficiencies also take many years to develop.
Yeah, right.
Too.
So that was a good point that Dr. Kahn made, is that you can measure your arteries. Everyone's concerned about the diabetes and cholesterol in the blood because of its possible effect on creating and making worse this phenomenon called atherosclerosis, or hardening or narrowing of the arteries. You can actually measure them now. You can measure with ultrasound or a rapid CT scan to see if you have the disease. And I think we're at a point in personalization of medicine where you don't have to take a medicine for a disease you're not sure you have. It would be like taking chemotherapy because the doctor says, well, you're going to get cancer one day. No, if someone's giving you a medicine for a possible disease, make sure they give you evidence that you have the disease. Just having a high cholesterol, for example, is not enough to say you have hardening or narrowing of the arteries. You can actually get those measured. And anyone who follows a keto diet or even a vegan diet, I would think would want to get periodic measurements of the arteries, your own, to see if what you're doing is healthy for you. You can actually get those kinds of measurements, and I recommend those for my patients if you saw me in my clinic. Well, I thought that was an interesting discussion. Joe Rogan got schooled a little bit on the carnivore diet, and Dr. Kahn brought in the plant-based bias, which of course that's okay. You can expect that. But I think there was a good debate and an acknowledgement that the long-term consequences of a carnivore diet are not known, although you could look back to historical people, but I don't think that's good enough. So you want to take matters into your own hands if you can, which is to measure your own health to make sure that you're progressing and not getting a disease that you don't want to have. I hope that's helpful. Be sure to like if you liked it, subscribe, ring the notification bell, send it to a friend or loved one. It's a grassroots effort. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.